Welcome in, college football fans. It's that time again. It's time for the first and long college football show. That's right. You're tuned into the right spot. We're about to unpack what we just saw in week 12. We saw Washington escape Reser Stadium with a win. Michigan escaped Maryland with a win. Louisville got a win. Texas got a win. We've got tons of games to talk about. Georgia got a win. Man, that was a fun Saturday, man. And for all intents and purposes, we both had pretty good days at the betting window. You had a better day than I did, but I'll take 500 for me for the week. How was your weekend, and how about those games this Saturday? That was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good weekend overall. I didn't have anything planned this Saturday, so it was nice. I got to sit at home for the most part. I did take my daughter to a movie, but pretty much caught at least a bit of every single game, live and got to watch the majority of the games. And that makes for a good Saturday, right? But yeah. You mentioned that at the betting window, I was 8-3 for the week for the show. 11-3 in my own personal bet. So it was a good week, man. That was the best week I've had so far this year. And I needed a break. It was nice to get a break for once.
Bounce of ball went Mason's direction. So
that's right.
That's always a good feeling. And the bounce of ball went some of these teams' way this weekend. So let's go ahead and get into it. And I thought the most influential game of the weekend for as far as college football playoff implications and a big home field advantage. Clearly Vegas thought that Oregon State had in this game, as Oregon State was favored. It was a torrential downpour for a large portion of this game, and it certainly affected play in this game. I thought that it would go in the favor of Oregon State. But you know what? I have to say, I am very impressed with Washington and the way they handled this test. It was an absolute gut check, and really kind of just like a mind F. The rain was just really hard to deal with for pretty much everybody except for Rome Odunze, who had an unbelievable day. So let's kind of get into it. Penix was 13 of 28. There was a large portion of this game, about an hour straight of real time, where he didn't complete a pass. Things that going got tough, but we talked about in the game breakdown that we thought it would be very important that Washington was able to run the football, and I was concerned that they wouldn't be able to, and they won the rushing battle in this game in a lot of cases, and it was subtle, but Dylan Johnson. He made enough plays and helped this team enough to win the game. Huskies, like I said, ran the ball decent, 110 yards. I think that's enough for this team. As much of a threat as they are over the top and throwing the ball around, which Michael Penix is unbelievable. The way he flicks the football around is, I mean, it is unbelievable. But 100 yards of rushing, 4.4 yards per carry, I think is going to get it done for this team. Obviously, most of the time they're undefeated at this point. So, look, a game like this, it's just win and get out of there. It's not. There ain't no style points that are necessary. This was all around a good win. And another very impressive thing to me was the plays that the defense was making. Now, Martinez does what Martinez does. He had quite a few rushing yards, but I thought whenever it was needed, I thought Washington came up with some good stops and had DJU kind of forcing the ball in a lot of situations. I thought the secondary played well considering the conditions, especially because Oregon State took several shots deep down the field, and specifically Muhammad, the cornerback, number one on the defense. It was number one on the defense for Washington and number one on the offense. Those guys pretty much just ran the game. Obviously, on offense with the help of Michael Penix at times, where he played decent. What was your thoughts on this game? And you were on the Washington side of this bet, so this is one of the ones that cashed for you. What do you
Yeah.
think about the game, and what do we think about Washington moving forward?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Washington's defense. I think that was the main takeaway, and I know there was a lot of rain. That forced couple of fumbles for Oregon State. They also had two interceptions, so kind of sloppy play. Given the circumstances and the weather, it correlated with the weather, right? The sloppy weather as well. But I thought it was a gritty performance by the Washington defense, and their offense came out strong. In that first half, I would have liked to have seen them give themselves more opportunities to score. They did have the one missed field goal in the second half, but didn't score at all in that second half. I think that was a little disappointing if you're a Washington fan. I think that if you're going to beat Oregon in this upcoming game, for the likely for the Pac-12 championship game, you got to have more opportunities. Give yourself more opportunities. Now, you're not going to have to deal with the rain and the conditions in a dome in Arizona, but is that going to be enough? Is that going to get them over the hump and allow them to score, all the way throughout the game? I think that's what's going to be needed. We've already seen that matchup, and they were scoring all throughout that game. So, but mostly it was a positive day for the Huskies. Oregon State, I mean, they battled, they gave themselves opportunities, but couldn't punch it in, and really just had too many turnovers for this game to really be competitive. But you mentioned Damian Martinez; he had one heck of a game, and really neither quarterback ended up throwing over 50%, which is understandable considering the circumstances. And I mean, it wasn't just light rain. It was a downpour for most of that game. So, but yeah, I thought that given that both offenses really did a pretty good job of extending drives and things. But ultimately, I thought that it was the defense that showed up for the Huskies, and we've mentioned it. We've had commenters mention it. When they need to make plays, Washington, their defense makes plays, and that was the difference in this game. They created turnovers. You saw Dylan Johnson fumble nearly at the goal line. And you're thinking, what the heck, man? You just missed out on 7 points, and the defense gets the ball right back. They create a turnover, punch the ball out, and then they end up getting a touchdown on the next drive anyway. So it didn't matter at the end of the day. So they kind of backed up Johnson in that regard, and came up big. Just very, very opportune, I guess is the word for Washington's defense. But I was impressed. I still want to see a little bit more out of this team before I pick them over Oregon, and I don't think we're going to get a chance to see that necessarily. But they've got Washington State coming up, who looked really good. So, but they were facing Colorado at the end of the day, and I'm excited for that matchup that we get to break down tomorrow.
Well, I tell you what, at this point in the season, as I said earlier, you're just trying to get out with a win, and they were able to do that. It was certainly a gut check Saturday. I am very impressed because I was on the Oregon State side, and honestly, everything was set up exactly. I feel like Oregon State would want it, and uh, Washington forced DJU into some tough situations passing down the field. I mean, he couldn't get anything going at all.
Mm.
And whenever he would try to drop back, they were coming after him, and he had some good runs. And obviously Martinez had a good day, but yeah, man, it opportunistic is definitely the word for this defense. They took advantage of their opportunities in this one, and just the mental wherewithal to be able to withstand the elements and everything. I just thought was really impressive, man. This team's got a lot of guts. This is a really good team. Kalen DeBoer, has lost 2 games since he's been at Washington, Mason.
Yep.
I mean, you there ain't many coaches that start out this good
Yeah.
at a university, and it is extremely impressive. Certainly at a place like Washington, and I know we got some Washington fans probably tuned in right now, but they'll be watching this later because they're going to be celebrating this one. And yeah, as you said, Washington State looked really good. Surprised the absolute heck out of me. Washington State looked like an earlier form of themselves earlier in the season. I am interested to see that matchup next week. I
Yeah.
think Washington is going to be able to handle that. But gosh, they got a big look ahead spot, man, because they do have that matchup in Vegas in the Dome with with Oregon. That is locked in at this point. So definitely don't want to drop one here. You want to give yourself a chance if something does go wrong against Oregon, who looked very, very good this weekend. Not really going to have a chance to mention them, but they won 49-7 over Arizona State. Beat the ever living hell out of Dillingham, who was their ex offensive coordinator. Dan Lanning was his best man in his wedding.
Yeah.
And then he goes out there and smokes him. But
Well, he did take his foot off the gas that second quarter or that second half. They were up
oh yeah,
42 nothing in the first
oh yeah,
half, and they score one touchdown the rest of the game. We've seen
that was
we've
my
seen that a
idea.
lot from Dan Lanning too. In this
Yeah.
Oregon team this year that just tends to dominate everyone from the get go.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Hey, and if you're watching the show right now, shoot us a comment and let us know what you thought about this game or all these games that we're going to be talking about. We're so glad that you're tuned in to the First and Long College Football Show. We're bringing news and analytics and game breakdowns, which we'll have later this week for what is for a lot of teams a rivalry week coming up in Week 13. So we hope that you'll come join us for that. And we hope that you'll just do us the favor of hitting that subscribe button because it certainly helps us out and it makes us able to let you know when we have content being uploaded and things like that, because you're not going to want to miss anything from this point out, especially you Washington fans. These teams that we're about to talk about first, um, we're talking about playoff teams now. We're getting
Mhm.
down to the nitty gritty playoff teams and conference championship teams. A lot of that was solidified this week. Um, let's go to Maryland because I thought this game was extremely interesting. Um, Michigan 31, Maryland 24. So game was 23-10 at halftime. Okay. Um, Baby Tua turned the ball over 3 times. Otherwise, I think Maryland has a really good shot in this game. I'm just going to be honest with you. He made some silly, boneheaded decisions in this game, in which he's done a lot throughout his career in big games. And I mean, um, couldn't be farther from his brother as far as being clutch. His brother was pretty damn clutch.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, JJ McCarthy is 12 of 23 for 141 yards passing, that is, was 6.1 average. Threw a really bad interception. I mean, that interception was into triple coverage, man. I mean, there were 3 guys in the vicinity. I don't know what he's doing. Um, Blake Corum, 28 rushes, 94 yards. That's a 3.4 average against a Maryland running defense that is 6th in the Big Ten. Okay, so I'm sorry, that's not a very good rush defense. No Michigan receiver has over 36 yards for the game. There was only 7 with catches. Obviously, there's only 12 receptions to go around. There, not much to work with there. Michigan had 291 total yards. Maryland had 262 total yards. Very close there. Time of possession was damn near the same. I will say this: Michigan's defense only allowed 15 rushing yards. Very impressive. I love this Michigan defense, especially the front 7. Um,
Mhm.
the back end got torched a little bit. Um, uh, Baby Tua, while he did, or Baby Tungaloa, I should say, while he did make some bad mistakes, I mean, he did, I think, throw for almost 300 yards in this game. So here's where I'm at with Michigan. I argued with some Michigan fans last week, online about, they were saying, they were taking pride in the fact that they ran the ball over and over and over again on Penn State. They said, why would we throw it? We don't need to throw it. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You needed to throw it today or yesterday, I should say. And I'm just not confident in this quarterback making throws to outside receivers. He tries to force everything down the middle. And Maryland had a good game plan, man. They had that shit congested in the middle. There was guys everywhere, and he still threw it into them. I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is the guy that's going to be getting Michigan to the promised land. And beyond that, I don't know which receiver is a deep threat on this offense at this point. The rush game is really, really good, but when it's so predictable, I mean, even a team like Maryland can hold you to 3.4 yards per rush. Blake Corum, that is. Michigan had a total of 150 rushing yards, so I'd imagine it was probably right around the same. I don't know. It was just an uninspiring performance. Now, with that being said, we had to expect Michigan to have a bad performance at some point. They hadn't had one all year. This is obviously a tumultuous situation that has gone on over the last few weeks. Everybody and their grandma knows what's going on. Non-football fans have been paying attention to this.
Yeah.
So it would be impossible to not be distracted, but this was a very uninspiring performance by Michigan, in my opinion. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more about what this offense is about. I think the defense is for real. The front seven's good enough to bail out what I think is probably a pretty average secondary. And I think the offense is kind of just a vanilla run team, and they're really good at running the ball, especially against inferior opponents. But what was your thoughts on this game? This one had me pretty entertained. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I was definitely entertained, and for as much as we were kind of poo-pooing on the noon slate, that was like some of the best football to watch. There were like 4 really good noon games, so I enjoyed that. And this one was the highlight of all that, to me. And really, with Michigan, I look at the first, I guess it was the first maybe like 7 minutes of this game or so. Michigan got the ball to start. They went 3 and out. Their opening possession. Maryland goes 57 yards down the field and kicks a field goal. And so they were the first ones to score. And then Michigan goes 9 plays and scores. Pretty methodical there. I think McCarthy had his big pass of the day for 23 yards to Roman Wilson, and that kind of pushed him down the field. And then it was hand the ball off after that. They score a touchdown, and then on the next possession, Maryland fumbles the ball and Michigan returns it for a touchdown. Right. So that's 7 points there that the defense went out and got. And then on the very next possession, Maryland goes 3 and out again, and they punt the ball, and it was blocked. And the punter had to kick it through the end zone for a safety. So that's another 2 points that the special teams got. So that's 9 points right there. And then Michigan was able to go down for a 15-yard, 7.5-minute drive and score a touchdown. And you're thinking, dang, they're about to put this one away. It's 23-3 at this point. And you're thinking, man, it's over, Maryland's out of it, and we're barely into the second quarter, or I guess pretty good halfway through the second quarter at this point. And then they go down and answer on a 14-play drive and score. And I think that was pretty important. And then you mentioned the interception that McCarthy threw, kind of a bonehead play there. It didn't amount to much. They ended the half at that point. There was only 11 seconds left.
It just cost them a touchdown, though. I mean, they were right on the goal line.
Right. Yeah. So, Maryland comes up and gets a big play there on defense. And then Maryland gets the ball back and they go down and score. And you're thinking, man, it's 23 17 now. We got ourselves a ball game. And Talia has an interception on their next drive. That Michigan goes 3 and out. Talia has an interception. Then Michigan scores a touchdown. And then Maryland scores a touchdown and answers. And at that point, I saw a lot of like a lot of tight buttholes on the Michigan sideline at that point, because it's 29-24, right?
They were puckered up.
They were puckered up for sure. They're on the road in Maryland, and they're thinking, man, we're getting all we can handle at this point. And that was pretty much it. I mean, you saw Michigan go, let's see, on their last 3 drives, offensive drives, or 3 out of the last 4, not the last drive where they ended the game with a 3.5-minute drive, but they got 1 first down, and that just tells me how apprehensive they're being and trying to run the ball and kind of churn that clock a little bit. But Maryland almost was able to do something with it. And then Maryland also threw another pick in their second to last drive, and then had a safety at the end of the game. So disappointing. I thought Maryland had a really good opportunity there, and it was wasted with some sloppy play. But overall, I mean, Blake Corum has 28 carries for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's not great. 3.4 yards per carry. Not great. Donovan Edwards was 3.5. McCarthy was just over 50% passing. Offensively, I just thought this was a lackluster performance. And defensively, yeah, you can talk about how good they were, I guess, but they still gave up 24 points to Maryland, and Maryland's been pretty bad here lately. I don't know. To me, this looks like a very beatable Michigan team. And for my money, I think that Ohio State is the favorite to win the Big Ten at this point. And not that Ohio State looks as good as they did last year. They're not world beaters or anything like that. But I've seen enough from Ohio State's defense to tell me that, they're going to give Michigan a handful. It's really going to be a struggle. I'm already going to bet the under. I don't know what the over under is, but I'm betting the under, whatever it is. That's going to be
it's going to be like 44 or something.
Probably. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting battle this weekend, and I'm excited for it. But right now, I've got to have Ohio State in that front spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like them in that matchup as well, because I like the fact that the only downfield threat in the whole game, I feel like, is on Ohio State's team. So I like Marvin Harrison against these corners. I think they're going to be able to scheme him open. And not to mention, I like the running game with Ohio State just as much as I like the running game. The running game in Ohio State is very good. Henderson has played very well, and here we are. It's coming down to the game. Ohio State. Let's see. They took care of Minnesota 37-3. Okay, and looked really dominant doing it. And I know it's Minnesota. Minnesota's not great. I understand that, but Maryland ain't great either. We talked about it in the preseason, and I specifically talked about the fact that I feel like Ohio State took it very personal, and I think it's very clear that they took it personal, that everybody was calling them soft. I mean, we all saw Ryan Day go off on 102-year-old Lou Holtz earlier this year for Lou Holtz saying that they weren't the most physical team in that Notre Dame game. They've obviously not been completely insulated to the noise, and nobody is. But this team that Ohio State has built this year is a lot different than the one that we've seen recently. It is a defensive-led team, and they have a game manager at quarterback. They have a good run game, and they've got probably the best pound-for-pound player in college football, arguably the best pound-for-pound player in college football, and Marvin Harrison at wide receiver. And I think that is a huge weapon in this game that's coming up. Whoever can win the game next week is going on to play Iowa. And Again, let's take the under. We'll take the under again in that game in the Big Ten championship, because that's not going to be a high scoring game at all.
Right.
So we may see 10 pass attempts in that game. If Michigan makes it, they may just decide to just run the ball the whole time. So I'm not in love with this Michigan team right now. If you can't tell, I don't like the fact, obviously, that they've cheated. I can't help, my brain can't help but think, well, maybe things are a little different when they didn't know what Maryland was about to run. And I don't know that that's completely true. I mean, people guess all the time. I stood on the sidelines in high school football and yelled, "Run, run, run," whenever I thought it was a run play, right? I mean, we've all done that, but with them not having, everybody knowing what happened, changing signs and things like that, I can't help but wonder in this game if there wasn't a little bit of that, that wasn't helping Michigan, and because it sure didn't seem like they were able to stop any kind of passing attack from Maryland in this one. So that the game is going to be a big one, guys. This game coming up between Michigan and Ohio State, it's at Michigan. This is one of the biggest games that we're going to talk about over the last few years. It's a big, big game.
Yeah.
Considering the controversy that's going on, Ohio State has dropped 2 in a row to this Michigan team, have been accused of being soft as Charmin. And at times, you know what? Ohio State looked pretty soft. But like a difficulty there.
I lost you there for a minute.
Keep it moving here. Yeah. I think we all lost each other there for just a second.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Hey, and I wanted to read a comment real quick from Eric Stockton. Why did Auburn pay to get beat? If y'all don't know, Auburn lost. Auburn lost to
New Mexico State.
New Mexico, the team there, because it was such a bad team. Yeah, that was my friend. That was ugly. If you can see me live, and please let me know in the comment section, please. Let me know that you can see me. I can't. We're having some issues. It looks like now that it's starting to work.
I think you're good
Eric
now.
Stockton's comment that I was just talking about. I'm not sure what happened there. We had a little glitch in the matrix.
Snafu.
That's the beauty of technology. It works great till it don't. Eric said yes, he can see me. Thank you, Eric. Trusty Eric. Louisville at Miami. This is a game that I had bet on Louisville and cashed in. This was the one that I actually felt most confident about. Never a sweat. No, just kidding. It
went about like we thought it would, I think.
Well, in a 1-point spread, went in by 7. You know what, Louisville fans, you can hang your hat on this one. This was a good victory. Look, when Miami plays, mistake-free football, and by mistakes, I mean turnovers, they're a tough team to beat, man. They're very talented. They have a balanced approach. So tough to deal with whenever things are clicking for them. But the momentum just swayed back and forth and back and forth. If you look at the win prediction meter, it looked like a freaking EKG machine, man. I mean, it was Miami, in the first quarter, and then Louisville, and then Miami and Louisville. I mean, it was back and forth. Very, very, very good game and well-played game. So Coleman for Louisville catches a 58-yard touchdown with 4:17 left in the game to go up 38-31, and they ultimately stopped Miami close to the red zone there on 4th down to win the game. Jack Plummer looks good. 24 of 37, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Looks good. Louisville ran for 162 yards, 4.8 average. That was led by Guerindo. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. I've been watching him all year. He had 93 yards. But 12 Louisville players caught passes in this game. They spread the ball around really, really well. Jamari Thrash seems hurt. I
Yeah,
don't know what the
he
deal is
is.
there. He only had 1 reception and 7 yards.
They mentioned it before the game.
It definitely did. Yeah, I know he's a little banged up, and when he did make the catch he made, it looked like it hurt him a little more. I don't know. They're going to need him, I feel like, in the long run. But this clinches an ACC title bid against FSU, who everybody probably at this point, if you don't know, Jordan Travis went out of that. Maybe you don't know because they played like North Alabama or something, like an elementary school team. But Jordan Travis went out with an absolutely gruesome injury, really, really, really bad, and it's going to it's going to take him out for the rest of the year. And I'm just hoping at this point that he doesn't have some permanent injuries from that, because it was a really, really, really bad one. And I think we got Mason freezing up there. But all in all, Louisville looks like they are in a really good spot now with Jordan Travis being out. Man, I mean, they look like they are in a really, really good spot. Did you get a chance to watch this game, and what did you think? And maybe I'll go tap on my internet real quick.
Yeah, you're good. It looks like everything's good on my end, and I've got the YouTube stream up, and at least my picture looks okay.
I have heard
so.
you skipping a pretty good bit so
Yeah.
far. That's why I say that. But
Okay.
I'm just
it's been
me
something's going on, but all right. But yeah, in Louisville and Miami, I thought this was a great game. Another noon slate that had me, tuned in, and it was very back and forth, like Mark mentioned. It was a lot more on the ground, I think, than we anticipated. Louisville had 162 yards. Miami was right there at 159. These were two very good rushing defenses. So to see them, which I mean, it's not like they rush for over 200 or anything, but to see the run game get going kind of for each team, I thought was pretty important, and it really made it a very close game. Jack Plummer had over 300 yards. Tyler Van Dyke had over 300 yards. Tyler Van Dyke, man, he showed some guts in this game. I thought that for all the flack that he was given, pregame and off the field, and he was talking about how he's not going to let. And we mentioned this on the show, but he was talking about how he's not going to let football affect his happiness, and he showed a lot of fight, I thought, and played a pretty good game. I mean, 24-39, 327 for 1 touchdown, no interceptions. That's fine. If he could do that all year, they probably would have won a couple more games. But Restrepo just absolutely went off. 8 receptions, 193 yards, and a touchdown. He's a really fun player to watch. Very similar to Ladd McConkey, I think, in a lot of ways, in his twitchiness, and he's very sure-handed. He's very fun to watch. And Louisville kind of did it a different way, and they had – 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. They had 12 different players get a reception in this game, so they really spread the ball out a lot and got it done. I mean, they got the W. Like you mentioned, Thrash was banged up, only one catch there. So they're kind of having to do it by committee, but it was pretty awesome to see. I think that we were on the right side of it and thinking that Louisville would win this game, but Miami showed that they're a pretty tough team, and they may not be there this year, but look for Miami to take another step next year. I do think that they've improved from last year under Mario Cristobal's first season. And I think they make another step forward this year and this coming up year. And I'm excited to see it, but it's a great game overall and another big win for Louisville. And now they got Florida State, a hobbled Florida State to kind of set their eyes on coming up. They can lose to Kentucky this week, which they might do. Kentucky's not necessarily an easy team, but at the end of the day, they're going to be in the ACC championship, and that's the game that they're most looking forward to at this point.
Yeah. Um, man, I hate it. You're kind of lagging a little bit, and it's getting real choppy. Dadgummit. Let's go on to the next game. Hopefully, this matter clears itself up here.
All right, I'm gonna hop off
Texas
for
at
just a
Iowa
second here.
State. Yeah, maybe give it a replug on the router or something. I'll take you through this Texas Iowa State, and I'm so sorry about that, folks, but you know how technology is. Um, so look, Texas scores 6 points in the first half on 2 field goals. The game honestly really didn't even start until about 5 minutes left in the third quarter. This thing was like 6-3 until 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Jordan Whittington catches a 23-yard touchdown pass at about that mark in the game. On the following Iowa State drive, Rocco Becht, who honestly, man, this guy's got a lot of upside. That's the quarterback for Iowa State, who is a freshman. And folks, you're going to know Rocco Becht. I'm telling you right now. He throws a 14-yard touchdown to Eli Sanders, and then the PAT gets blocked, and Texas returns it all the way back for a safety. And then gets obviously the ball punted to them. Less than 3 minutes later, Quinn hits Gunnar Helm for a 31-yard touchdown pass. You know, and Beck ended up throwing a pick during all this. Iowa State scores one more time, then Texas hits a field goal and clocks it out. Game over. Quinn Ewers, 23 of 33, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns. CJ Baxter had 117 yards rushing. Xavier Worthy, 4 receptions, 77 yards. The offense, I felt like pretty much did their thing as far as yardage goes, but could not get points on the board. Was struggling to get into the end zone. And only 3.6 now, I think it was last week or the week before, with that injury, and he's not going to be back. So I'm starting to wonder about this Texas run game just a little bit. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to pick up with. They were already trying to replace Bijan Robinson from last year, and then Jonathan Brooks goes out, and so now you're relying on a freshman, C.J. Baxter. Now, personally, I do believe that freshmen can step in and play running back in college football and sometimes do really well, but I don't know, man. I'm starting to wonder about this Texas run game a little bit. The offensive line didn't look great in pass protection either. 4 sacks and 6 tackles for loss allowed. Um, Quinn Ewers, they said in the broadcast that after last week his shoulder was really sore. It's an injury that is about pain tolerance, and basically it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. Well, it does matter because it hurts, obviously. His throwing motion is really, really short right now, super flicky. Like I feel like he's not winding up and uncorking the ball like we know that Ewers can. And it's possibly, I think, affecting his downfield passing. Short stuff, he looked good. He looked fine. And hey, he had his yards. He did his part. He did his part. But the run game didn't look great. Offensive line, if you want to keep Quentin Ewers healthy, this was not an exhibit of how to do that. You can't be letting this guy get hit. He's not taking off and running right now, obviously. Texas had 7 penalties. I thought it was kind of sloppy in that regard. And look, this secondary is kind of suspect. This isn't an Iowa State team that's known for dropping back and uncorking the ball down the field. So I'm seeing some chinks in the armor that we've continued to see a few weeks now with Texas. Are they going to be able to withstand the rest of the schedule and the Big 12 championship without absorbing a loss? What did you think about the Texas Iowa State game? It's not one that we broke down. We thought about it. Probably.
Hey, I think you're cutting out there again, Mark. But yeah. So in this game, I mean, I think Texas showed some vulnerability. You mentioned on the back end, when you're letting Rocco Beck go for 323 yards, and averaging over 10 yards per attempt. I mean, that's not great for a Texas defense that has really been the unit that has kind of led this team in a lot of ways. And that's not what you want to see. And Texas, as good as their defense is, they're led by their defensive line. So the fact that Iowa State, and I didn't watch this game from start to finish, I'll be honest, but the fact that Iowa State was able to have that much success passing the football tells me that they weren't getting to the quarterback, right? That's what Texas wants to do. They want to rush the quarterback, disrupt him, and create turnovers that way, and just affect the quarterback and cause him to make some errant throws, right? It doesn't look like they did that, just based on what I'm seeing. I did see for this Texas offense, and look, Mark mentioned it, but Ewers was 23 of 33 for 281 yards, 2 touchdowns. Didn't look great as far as like the way he was throwing his motion, but was effective at least, and did what he needed to do. I think that he's going to play through the rest of this year a little bit hobbled, and maybe that's why he decided to come back for another year. If you didn't know, he did announce this week that he is going to come back next season, and I'm interested to see what he's going to look like throughout the rest of the year. He should get better week in and week out. If they can make it to the playoffs, I think that gives him that extra rest, and maybe we see a fully healthy Quinn Ewers by that time. But he's definitely playing hobbled. So what's the best remedy for a quarterback that's not playing at his top, at his peak? That's going to be passing the ball, or handing the ball off. And now they don't have Jonathan Brooks there to hand the ball off to, who was really one of the best offensive weapons in the Big 12 at running back for Texas. So now they have to rely on a very talented true freshman, but still a true freshman, right? In CJ Baxter. And this was his first year, really this was his first week really getting the bulk of the carries, and he did a great job. 20 carries, 117 yards, 5.9 yards per attempt. That's getting it done. I saw him run with a lot of gumph, I guess, and he just really powered through and showed some power. I mean, he's got some wiggle, but overall, I was just really impressed with how he handled that position that he was put in. And Iowa State was in this game up until late. I did tune in late to watch the potential upset. It was looking like there might have been an upset here, but let's see. But so it was. I was trying to pull the score up here. So it was 17-9 going into the fourth quarter, and Iowa State had the ball and they're driving, but Texas really just was able to get the stops where they needed to, and that was really important to see, and I think that Iowa State just kind of lost, just ran out of gas right at the end of the game, and Texas is able to win it and move on. And now, they've got Texas Tech coming in. Actually, they've got to go to Texas Tech. So that's a game that you look at and say, well, Texas Tech, they're playing pretty good football right now. They just beat UCF by 1 point. That was another good game from this week. But they've been playing pretty good football and can certainly give Texas a run like Iowa State just did. Under the same circumstances. I'm just anxious to see what Quinn Ewers, and pay attention to this moving forward. What does Quinn Ewers look like? How does he throw? Right. And does missing Jonathan Brooks affect the Texas team moving forward? Or do we continue to see CJ Baxter step up and make the plays that he did in this game? I think that's really important for Texas moving forward. and Mark, I was just wrapping up the Texas reaction there, but if you got anything else you want to add to that game, go ahead, or I'm ready to move on if you are.
Well, I don't know what everybody heard. Hopefully everything's going to be better now. I did some resetting and stuff in there, and I'm thinking we're going to be all right now. But Texas run game, I think, is missing Jonathan Brooks. Secondary is not looking that great. I think it's been a suspect secondary throughout the year, pretty good bit, honestly. Um, O-line is not looking great. 4 sacks and 6 tackles for loss allowed, and not to mention not great yards per rush. So I'm kind of concerned about that going forward. But then again, I don't see a test on Texas's schedule as it sits right now, where we're going to be able to see this team be tested again. So going to be really interesting to see how that goes for Texas as we go down the line. They will be in the Big 12 championship game no matter what. So we will see Texas. Let's talk about Georgia. We kind of skipped over this game, and it's because I didn't make a banner for it, which I'm going to do right now. But Georgia came out and looked really dominant. Georgia is one of those teams that is going to beat you in multiple ways. We kind of talked about it with Washington earlier. I thought that Washington found kind of a different formula to victory this past Saturday, and Georgia pretty much is a team that's showing up and saying which way you want it. How are you going to line up on defense is going to dictate how we're going to beat you. And I mean, you got different guys showing up each week. We didn't even see Ladd McConkey play. So I'm really, really liking this Georgia offense at this point. The game started off. I mean, I know everybody was wondering what the heck just happened. The very first play of the game, Jalen Wright takes it, 75 yards or whatever it was, for a touchdown. And after that, man, there wasn't another touchdown scored by Tennessee. They kicked a field goal, and Georgia wins 38-10. Had a lot of bets hit on this game. I had bet the under. You had bet several things on this game. They all hit. Georgia is, I think, getting better week by week. They've done the opposite of what a lot of teams have done, in the fact that a lot of teams start the year healthy and they end the year with less depth and less health. Georgia seems is somehow getting healthier as the year goes, and there's more players emerging, which is creating more depth in the lineup. CJ Allen has another really, really good day. This freshman is incredible. We're watching somebody really come into their own, and I'm expecting a lot from him as the season continues, as it will for Georgia on into December and more than likely January, from what I'm seeing. What did you think about the Georgia-Tennessee game, and what are you going to spend all the money on that you won?
Yeah. A whole, let's see, I think I had 4 plays, so I'm walking with $40 cash, just, hey, maybe that's a dinner or two, I don't know. I might spend it all in one place. Might spend it all in one place. You never know.
You can get Taco Bell for that, for sure.
But yeah, I think we were right on top of this game. I did have the over in this game that did not hit, so there is that.
I remember that now. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm not perfect, y'all, believe it or not. But ultimately, I think that we had it nailed. We told you that Tennessee was going to come out and score on their first drive, right? Well, it didn't take them long. They did it on their first play, 75-yard run. Yeah. And after that, Georgia just said, park the freaking bus, and get off, because this game is over. Y'all are done, and that's what we saw. To me, I was more impressed with Georgia's defense in this game than any other game I've seen so far this year. And they're doing it without their vocal leader and Jamon Dumas Johnson. I was really impressed with how the secondary was flying to the ball. They've been doing a good job of that all year, but they did the best job I've seen all year in coming up and stopping the run and filling gaps and things like that. That first play was a missed assignment by everybody, right? And credit Tennessee's offensive line. They got a good push up front, created a hole. You mentioned C.J. Allen. He bites in the wrong hole. Smile London, the veteran, bites in the wrong hole. Both the safeties take a bad angle, and he blows by both the safeties, and you're just thinking, what the heck? That looked awful. I was a little bit worried at that point that Georgia was going to give up another sustained drive and score and all that on defense because they only saw one play, and there was nothing really
they didn't even get the whole
on.
scripted drive.
Right. So that's kind of what I was thinking there, but there was really nothing else going for the Tennessee defense. They did have another drive. I think it was actually on one of those fumbles that we had where we didn't recover. That second one we didn't recover, and I think that led to a fourth down stop. If I'm not mistaken, I may have those drives mixed up, but yeah, I thought it was a really good day for the defense. The offense looked great. I mean, there's nothing to really pick at. I thought that Dylan Bell just played out of his freaking mind.
Great day.
Threw for a touchdown, caught a touchdown, had like 90 yards receiving. You really saw some players that you haven't seen much this year. Rosemy Jackson had 91 yards on 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. It was really, and Kendall Milton had another big week, that was the second week in a row that he's put together a really nice week and actually looked a little bit better than Edwards this week, running the football and had a couple spin moves, out there. And you see him as this physical, domineering force. And to see him pull a little juke move here and there was pretty impressive to see. And I just think that, this team's clicking on all cylinders and, we really saw a talent gap between Georgia and Tennessee, but I think that we witnessed the best team in the country doing what they do, and beating a fringe top 25 Tennessee team the way that they did, covering easily and, really just holding them down on the road. Like, let's not forget that this was in one of the toughest environments to play in the SEC. They had won 14 games in a row, right? The last time they lost was when Georgia was there 2 years ago. And they're just getting it done. And also some history was made here that this was Kirby and Georgia now have the longest win streak in SEC history at 28. He surpasses Nick Saban and in that and looks to continue that, and I think we've got a while before Georgia hits the 47, which is the all-time mark. Yeah. I did a little bit of research on that, but Oklahoma. Back in the 50s, had 47 in a row. So I figured it out. And if Georgia wins out this year, wins the national championship, and then just does it again next year, they'll be at 48. So that's all they have to do. It's very doable for them. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask you though, Mark. So we've seen Quinn Ewers announce that he's coming back. I don't think Kirby wants Beck to even think about that right now. It's a little bit odd to me that Ewers announced that, when they technically are still in the playoff race and are hunting a championship, and that's what you're thinking about as a quarterback. I don't know. It's just a little bit weird to me that he announced that he's coming back. But Carson Beck now, playing the way that he's playing, is he a first-round draft pick? Do you think he's coming back next year?
Yeah, as a Georgia fan, as you can see behind me, I certainly hope that he's coming back. But I think if he left, I don't see why he wouldn't be a first-round pick, man. Everything he's done, I mean, my goodness. And he's about to get all the attention that he's been getting attention, don't get me wrong, but he's about to get a lot of attention over the next couple months here if Georgia can take care of business in Atlanta. And he's going to be able to go against some good defenses, and he's going to be able to put some film out there against some NFL caliber players. And I think that these NFL general managers are going to be licking their chops at this guy. He's got the prototypical size. He threw a ball to Bowers that, I mean, dude, this thing was like a frozen freaking rope, man. I
Yeah.
mean, this guy's got arm action like unbelievable. Throws a pretty ball every time, never seen a duck. This guy gets it, man, and he already runs a pro style offense. There
Yeah.
is no He's gonna jump right into a system and do well if he's got protection. Um, Georgia has the Great Wall of Georgia in front of him. He is sealed off, roadblock, uh, armored tanks back there guarding him. Nobody gets to it, man. I mean, so we haven't seen Carson Beck be uncomfortable. I saw maybe 2 throws where his feet were moving in this past game, and that was it, man. And they weren't great throws, but uh, like any quarterback, if you get pressure on him, he's not gonna be as good, but who's gonna get pressure on him? That's kinda where I'm at, and he's gonna look really good going into the end of the year. I'm an NFL GM, and I'm looking for a quarterback. Maybe you can even get him this year and get some value on him because his value, I think, is only gonna go up if he comes back.
Yeah, I think that we'll know after the Alabama game
Mhm.
what his decision is and what
If
it
he
should
throws
be.
for 300 yards on Bama,
Yeah.
he's gone.
And looks good. Yeah. Because I agree. I mean, I think that when you look at the breakdown of quarterbacks coming out this year that could come out this year, um, I don't know that he's not better than Bo Nix, right? As I believe he's better than Bo Nix as a pro style quarterback. I think that
Right.
he's better than Bo Nix. I would put him probably behind Drake May and Caleb Williams, just given what they've proven in some ways, and that they've been doing this for 2 seasons each at least.
Yeah.
Um, and so that they're especially Drake May. I think he's more of like a surefire quarterback. I've seen some things from Caleb that give me a little bit of pause. But and then you've got Michael Penix, and maybe they're like 3A and 3B. They're kind of like right there. I like the upside from Beck a little bit more. But I like what I've seen from Michael Penix as well. I just, I look at that and I think this guy's playing like some of the best football from a quarterback position standpoint in the country, and
Well, maybe
it's
those names that
undeniable.
you just named coming out are gonna deter him from going out this year, and he'll think, "Okay, I can come out next year and be the guy," you know?
Yeah,
I mean, he had another year next year like he's had this year, he could be the number 1 pick.
yeah.
So, depending on obviously what the needs are for the teams that, are in the top 5
Well,
picks or whatever,
Well,
so
then you look at it and you say, well, maybe he's better to go this year as the number 4 quarterback, middle of the pack, and go to a team like Atlanta who just needs a quarterback. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
you go to a
or
better team that way.
and I'm not just saying that because they're the home team. I don't cover NFL. Mark and I, neither one of us really cover the NFL, but a
Yeah.
team that needs a quarterback and that's all they're missing, right? Is my point. Maybe he's in a better situation if he goes 10th overall, or 12th overall or something like that. Um, so I don't know. Just an interesting conversation I think to have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just kind of breeze through some other notable um, scores and things that happen. Utah at Arizona, I thought it was really impressive. I'm the more and more I see Arizona, the more and more I like them. They defeated Utah 42-18. Um, a trick play, a block punt, and a couple Fafita passes for touchdowns gets Arizona off to a 28-0 start in that game. Um, and Fafita, 22 of 30, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another really good performance from him. Jonah Coleman, 14 carries, 90 yards. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry against a really stout Utah defensive front there that doesn't give up a ton on the ground. So the defense had 2 interceptions, 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. Made it hell on Bryson Barnes in this Utah offense. Um, Man, Arizona looks good. Jed Fish did a fantastic job with this team,
Yeah.
and I was really impressed. So I just wanted to kind of throw
It,
out some stats for that one.
isn't it kind of weird now looking back that Arizona lost to Mississippi State this year?
That's
that doesn't make
mind-boggling.
like that they could easily be like close to a top 10 team had they not had that loss. They'd
And,
be the top of the 2 loss teams had they not had that loss. You know?
and that's why, I've had a kind of a change of heart this year about the whole, you know, is it a ranked win if the team is ranked when you play them, or is it a ranked win if you get to the end of the year and the team's still ranked,
Yeah.
right? I've always kind of had that debate in my mind whenever I'm trying to do rankings and things like that. Arizona is the perfect example of how a team evolves throughout the year because, I mean, obviously what we saw Saturday is not the same thing that we saw at the beginning of the year
Mhm.
against Mississippi State. They're two different teams. So, um, teams change throughout the year, man. It's really unbelievable. And the best teams in this sport, they trend in the right direction as the year goes on. I mean, like look at USC. They're the opposite of this example. USC loses to UCLA this weekend. I don't even have that score up here. Shame on me. I think they lost 38-20. Chip Kelly's
Yep.
job's on the line. They're talking about firing him. Not even on field stuff that they're firing him for, but they've got turmoil going on. Um, USC started the year out hot. And
Yeah.
everybody's thinking, "Oh, man, watch out for this
Playoffs.
offense.
They're
Look
going
at
to be
all
in the
these
playoffs.
they're gonna be in the playoffs." That's right.
Yeah.
They're gonna be right there with Oregon and Washington. Where are they at, man? They're gone because they trended in the wrong direction. They started hot and they fizzled throughout the year. Arizona has done the opposite of that, and, that's what you look for at the end of the year, man. You're whenever you're looking into these New Year's Six games, bowl games, playoffs, conference championships, all that good stuff. Who's trending in the right direction? What does this team look like now? Alabama is a good example of this. They're trending in the right direction, I feel like. Georgia's trending in the right direction. So, congratulations to Arizona. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see this team in the Big 12 next year. That's going to be really
Mhm.
fascinating. I think they have a chance to be a top upper tier level program in the Big 12. I really do. I think that they're going to fit in really, really well, and they are getting out at the right time. Um, Oklahoma beats BYU 31-24. The defensive struggles continue. BYU is a team that can score the football. They've scored pretty well throughout this year, but I mean, they're not. They shouldn't in Oklahoma's own purview. The BYU shouldn't be competing with them.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was certainly a back and forth game here. This wasn't Oklahoma didn't get up 31 to nothing and then fell asleep or something. That's not what happened here. So we're keeping an eye on Oklahoma right now because and BYU for a couple reasons. Oklahoma is tied for the Big 12. Um, that second spot in the Big 12. But they lost one of their losses is to Oklahoma State, who is tied with them. So Oklahoma State has the tiebreaker. Okay. Oklahoma State plays BYU next week.
Mhm.
So watching this game was important in the fact that we're on Big 12 watch. We don't know that other side of the Big 12 yet. We know we've got Texas, but it's between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma is needing help. Um, Kansas State is also right there in it, but they need even more help than Oklahoma. So, very interesting coming down to the wire here for the Big 12. I think it's going to be interesting to see this weekend. Oklahoma's got TCU, so we'll have to watch that. Oklahoma State's got BYU. Both of those Oklahoma teams are hosting those Big 12 foes. So we'll have to tune into that Oklahoma State game and check and see what happened there. Um, Kansas
Yeah.
State 31, Kansas
Real
27.
quick, Mark.
Huh?
One thing I don't want to gloss over is that Dylan Gabriel did go out with that
Yeah.
potential
Did.
concussion. So I thought that Jackson Arnold, excuse me, came in and played pretty well. Do we get to see him start next week? Right? Does the freshman get his first start? I'll be anxious to watch because this is a very talented quarterback in his own right. I think that from what I saw from him in this week and what I've seen in other drives that he's had, he's been able to come in and produce. So I don't think that he would have an issue against TCU. but it is something to watch. And especially if he's the starter, if he gets all the reps with the ones this week, I think it could be worthwhile just tuning in just to see a young quarterback like him, as talented as he is, see what he's able to do and take a little bit of a peek into the future for this OU offense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very, very good point that I kind of glossed over there. And then I have been somebody who's talked about Jackson Arnold in the preseason, and I felt like, this is obviously the quarterback of the future. I mean, he's the backup, but somebody who I thought if the train came off the tracks for Oklahoma, we could see him. Well, that hasn't happened necessarily, but looks like we're going to get to see him anyway.
Yeah.
So that will be very, very interesting, as Oklahoma needs to win and needs Oklahoma State to lose next week. Kansas State needs both of them to lose. And they beat Kansas 31-27 this weekend. Did not cover for me. And I'm going to blame all the Kansas State fans for that. No, I'm just kidding. But they had a chance to cover, man. I thought they were going to hit a backdoor cover there at the end for me. Couldn't get it done. Ballard was the quarterback who ended up playing for Kansas, and holy cow, what a gutty performance. This guy was just putting it all out on the line in this game. There was a couple times he got hit, man. He got spun around. I mean, it was just like all he did is he jumped back up. He put his chain back in his pads, and he'd go back at it again, man. No expression on his face. Pretty gutty performance from him. Thought Kansas State would be able to have, a little more success, I guess, offensively. I was thinking maybe 38 points in this game against the Kansas defense that hasn't been very good, but in spots in this game played up to the competition, and that's a lot of times what you get in rivalry games. So that's what I get for betting on this rivalry game here. What did you think about this one?
I mean, credit Lance Leipold, right? You've got a backup true freshman quarterback, and you're still able to put up 27 on a Kansas State defense that has been playing lights out. I mean, they have been really, really good. I thought that was pretty awesome. It was a gutty performance. I had the over in this game at 56.5, so I hit by a point and a half, but as soon as I saw the freshman come out for Kansas, I thought, crap, there ain't no way I'm hitting the over. Kansas might score 10 points, and he just proved me wrong, and had him in a chance to win at the end of the game. Definitely could have kicked a field goal if this score was any tighter. I think that it would have been a very interesting game, but just wasn't able to get it done on fourth down at the end. But I thought it was a gritty performance, and reason to have hope for Kansas in the future, and a really good game.
Yeah. This, speaking of really good games, Florida Gators 31 at Missouri 33. This game right here, man, it came down to the end. Missouri had the ball, was down 31-30. Fourth down and 17 to go. All that's left to do is Florida just needs to get this stop, keep it in front of them, and they're going to win the game. They're going to win the game, no problem. And Luther Burden just streaks right up the field. He stops right in the soft spot of the coverage, turns around, and the ball's put on him. And then Brady Cook just dinks, dunks, didn't miss a pass on the last drive. The thicker kicker comes in and gets the game winner and hits the Gator chomp on the way back to his sideline.
Yeah.
Florida was disgusted. Absolutely disgusted. Okay. Florida has got to get rid of this. Just first and foremost, I can't remember his name, but this young guy they got a defensive coordinator.
Austin Armstrong, yeah.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I'm sorry. It's not going to work.
And it's a shame, because I do think that he's probably a pretty good defensive mind, but he's 30 years old. And, he's just not in the right position to run. Now go put him at, Liberty, let him run their defense, or a team like that. But I think he's in over his head, and I think he's over his skis.
Yeah. And I think Missouri played a bad game, and I think that well, that's not completely fair. Florida's defense made plays at times in this
Right.
game when it was necessary. I mean, they did step up in certain situations, but we say it all the time. If your team scores 30 points, you should win the game. Like, there's really no excuse. I'm sorry. There's not, other than the other team being better. So 30 points, given up by Mizzou to Florida, that's extremely questionable. Graham Mertz goes out in this game. Florida's playing their, backup quarterback. You can imagine what that looks like. Um, but you know what? He had them in a chance to win the game, and they couldn't get it done. Couldn't stop Missouri on 4th down and 17. Just rips the heart right out of the Gators' chest. And then, as we talked about earlier, Oklahoma State. Um, we kind of talked about where they're at, looking to make the Big 12 championship game. They were in a ball game, but they ended up winning 43-30 at Houston against the Fighting Dana Holgersons. So Oklahoma State preserves their chance to make it to the Big 12 championship game. All they've got to do is beat BYU at home next week, and they are on their way to play Texas. So kind of rounding into form here as we get closer to that first weekend in December when we've got the conference championship games. So I feel like the picture is getting clearer and clearer. We're waiting on Michigan, Ohio State this weekend. We know that Iowa is going to match up with the winner of that game. So you can probably go ahead and pencil in the winner of Michigan, Ohio State is going to finish undefeated more than likely with a Big Ten championship game and a trip to the playoff. SEC championship, we've got Georgia and Alabama. Mason was saying before we started today that that's about a 4-point spread. That's going to be a fantastic football game. Cannot wait to see that. Yeah. Pac-12, we know we've got Washington, and I guess we know we've got Oregon now too. So that's it for that. So we're getting there. We're getting all this stuff rounded out, and it's coming down to the nitty gritty, and it's getting really exciting. So I am. This is my favorite time of year. We got the holidays. I did Thanksgiving on Saturday with my wife's family, so I'm sitting there eating turkey, watching these football games. And I failed to mention Louisville and Florida State there that we've got etched out for the ACC championship game. Real quick before we go to our top 25. We talked about it there for a minute. Jordan Travis goes off on a cart, man, and he's hurt bad. Not coming back. What did you think about Florida State? Did you get a chance to go back and watch? As soon as I figured out about the injury, the first thing I was like is, let me go watch this North Alabama game and see what we're working with here. So what did you do that? And what do you think now about the Florida State situation? Because I feel like this offense really revolved around him and his arm in this offense. I don't know that they're a potent enough rushing attack to be able to get to where they want to go at this point. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't gone back. I'm not that far into it yet to go back and watch that game. I do want to see what I think his name's Roadmaker, if I'm not mistaken. I want to see what he's able to do at quarterback to see what they've got, what they've got cooking moving forward. The good news is that I guess you could say he was hurt early enough in this game that you get him in, get him some snaps, right? He played almost a full game at this point. Now they've got Florida, and they got to go to the Swamp. So he's
who also has a backup quarterback.
That's right. So now, it's a battle of backup quarterbacks, a rivalry game. What are we going to get from this guy? I've seen some Florida State fans think that he actually operates the offense better than Jordan Travis. It's just
delusional. They're delusional.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to see what he's able to do.
Florida State fans, I'm sorry. Look, I've been messaging with the people on other videos, and we haven't had a ton of Florida State fans come on our channel this year, but my God, everywhere else on the internet, they're everywhere. And to say that this guy is going to run it better than Jordan Travis, there ain't no shot in hell. Um, the offense looked completely different. There were the 50-50 balls. We know that this team runs on the 50-50 ball. I like the quarterback and the fact that he can run it, and maybe they can run some read option things and confuse maybe Louisville or something. But this this is a really bad timing for a really bad injury. Uh, so I am in no way buying that this is this is going to turn out well for Florida State. Um, if they do beat Louisville, they're going to get absolutely crushed in the playoff. So
If they beat Florida, if they lose to Florida, they're not in the playoffs. They're
no,
already a lot of people are already saying
it's
that.
one loss and they're out.
Yeah,
They've played
yeah.
too many close games
They
with Jordan Travis, and then
they
the
might
committee
be
sees they
out.
don't have him, right?
Yeah, yeah. They might be out, even going undefeated. Because of their strength of schedule and coming out of the ACC. I've seen a lot of people saying, that a one-loss Texas might get in over Florida State, or a
If everybody
one-loss
else went undefeated,
Oregon,
yeah.
yeah, might get in over a Florida State. But I think that it should be that way, but I don't think we see that happen. I don't think that a undefeated ACC champion, won't get in. I don't think the committee wants those problems.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, we went ahead and generated. We didn't put this in the title, but y'all will get to see it first. We went ahead and generated our top 25. So we've got that ready. Let's go ahead and pull that sucker up. And if you're watching this either live right now or you're watching the clipped version of this later, give us a thumbs up. Give us a comment. Where did we go wrong here? What did you think about week 12? And I we just put the thing up, and there's Mr. Quentin, the resident Texas fan. How you doing, Mr. Quentin? Texas is going to have just as good a shot as anybody if they can win this next couple of games here. Let's go through this. Tied, I guess, at number 24 is Utah and Toledo. Toledo's had a good year. Go check them out. We're not going to talk a bunch of Toledo here. 0 Toledo fans to be found, but they've had a good year. Utah, look, they just got smoked by Arizona, but I like Utah. I'm sorry. This is a decent football team. They're not good offensively, and I totally understand that. But overall, it's a decent football team. Liberty, undefeated. They got to be in there, right? Iowa wins again. They're winning the Big Ten West. Cry about it. Nobody wants to see the Big Ten East champion against the Big Ten West champion, but the Big Ten is slow to have those divisions taken away, just like the SEC. This is where we're at. This is where we're at. They still have divisions, and one side is super weak, and one side is pretty good. So we're going to see a donkey stomping there in Indianapolis. And then we got Clemson coming in at 21. I don't listen to Dabo a whole lot, but he told me to buy stock in Clemson a couple weeks ago, didn't he?
Yeah.
And they are looking better.
Yep.
They are definitely looking better. There were times this year I held on to the sentiment that Clemson had a good defense throughout the whole thing, but it was hard at certain times. They're starting to look more like the Clemson defense that we've come to know. They've kind of grown up throughout the year, starting to play better. So Clemson is on that bottom rung of the top 25, and I think they deserve it. Let's quickly move through this. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, we see Clemson. We see that orange paw print for the first time, I think, since like week 3. They were somewhere in the top 10, if I'm not mistaken, in our top 25, at least top 15, just to open the season. And we've been pretty low on them, really from the get go. But yeah, they're starting to win us back here a little bit. I'll stop shy of saying we're a Clemson show, but but they've done some things nicely, and winning against UNC is not easy to do. UNC did a lot to lose that game. A lot of I think they had 2 goal line fumbles from Hampton, who still went on to rush for 180 yards in that game. But credit Clemson and Dabo, for what they've been able to do. Iowa, they're what, a one-loss team. Like they've got to be in. So that's kind of where they're at. The under hit in their game again this week. At I think it was at 29 points, and they scored 28 or something. And the over under, it was that was pretty pretty funny to see. I almost bet the under in that game as well, but decided not to. Liberty and Toledo are the two that are there just based on their record in a way. And then Utah is that team that just won't go away. They just will not be pushed out of the top 25. Tough
pesky
schedule. Yeah, they're very pesky, and a tough schedule for them. Tough break on the schedule this year, but they're a gritty team. Bryson Barnes threw over 50 times in that game. I think he had 55 pass attempts or something like that, which is, more than, I think that's double his season high for any game. But they were playing behind against a tough Arizona squad. So, but yeah, you mentioned it. Not much on offense. They got toasted in some ways on defense against Arizona, but still in that top 25. So let's move on to the next 5.
I'll start at tied at 18 there. We got a 3-way tie. So we got Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, and Tulane tied at 18. And I felt pretty good about that, considering the fact that I don't know who would win in those. If there was a round robin of those 3 teams, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure who would win that. But Tulane's been a pretty good team. Only loss they've got this year is to Ole Miss, and they didn't have their starting quarterback in that game. Otherwise, I think they win that game.
Yeah.
Kansas State wins again. They don't cover, but they seem to be a team that has trended in the correct direction as the year has went on. They lost some players to the NFL and players moving on and things. So it was a turn the page type of thing to start the year for Kansas State in a lot of ways, especially defensively. Seems like they're getting that figured out as the year goes on, and they're just praying. They're just praying that there's a couple of Big 12 losses there, and then Arizona, a team that I really like. They're just balanced. This is a balanced team. They run the football decent. They throw the football decent. They play some defense. I like this Arizona team as they mollywopped Utah this past week, which is. Hey, we've seen Utah hang tough with a lot of teams this year, and Arizona handled them with a very, very decisive first half there and put Utah in a really, really tough spot as they are not built to come back. What do you think about this run?
Yeah, I think starting with Oklahoma State, I'm just really looking forward to seeing them. Hopefully, it looks like probably gonna face the Longhorns in the Big 12 championship, and they'll be on upset alert there. The Longhorns will. So that's got to be the game that Gundy's circling and saying, we got to have our best game of the year in order to win that, and they certainly do. Notre Dame's just kind of there. They're just kind of there, in general, in the top 25 and in college football as a whole. They don't do a whole lot to warrant my attention in some ways. And you mentioned Tulane. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. Then you got the 2 Wildcat teams up top with Kansas State and Arizona. Kansas State's a really good team. I think that would actually be a really good matchup. Kansas State versus Arizona. That'd be a fun one to see in a bowl game matchup or something. But 2 teams that play kind of similar football and have had similar seasons in a sense that they at the beginning of the year weren't playing their best football, and now they are. And now they look really good. So very similar in what they do there, and maybe Arizona, I give them the edge offensively, but the Wildcats and their defense have been really stingy as well. So, yeah.
Let's go to the next rung here. LSU at 15, they took care of Georgia State. Kind of struggled a little bit at first, which Georgia State's got some players. Okay, They're not like horrible or anything. LSU doesn't have much to play for at this point, but they take care of business, and that offense is obviously the straw that stirs the drink for that team, as they sit at 15. Number 14, Oregon State. We're not going to penalize the Beavers a whole lot for a 2-point loss to a top 3 team as far as we're concerned. They, they've obviously got their chinks in their armor. But, it's something I was actually thinking about yesterday. For selfish reasons and dramatic reasons, I would love to see Oklahoma and USC in a bowl game. I don't think that's going to happen. Oklahoma and Oregon State would be one hell of a matchup in a bowl game. I would love to see that, and Oklahoma is our 13th team there. I just think that would be an awesome game. A couple different styles. I think that game would come down to the end. And number 12, Penn State, and number 11, Ole Miss. This is another matchup that I would really like to see. I'd love to see those two teams face off in a bowl game. Penn State, we know what their flaws are. They have trouble stretching the field. It's pretty obvious. And Ole Miss doesn't have a defense. I mean, their defense is pretty porous. Has been for a good portion of the year. What do you think about this run? And I think I should be the one in charge of the bowl game matchups. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
First and Long should control that. I'm
Yeah.
just throwing that idea out there.
We're getting into that season, right, where we're playing bowl matchup prediction, and that's a really fun season of talking football. I can't wait to see what the matchups look like.
Imagine if it was a 12-team playoff this year.
Oh, I know, and and if you imagine that, it's not. It's funny because they keep expanding the playoffs, and I don't want to get too much on a tangent here, but they keep expanding the playoffs and expanding the playoffs. Well, if you expand to a 12-team playoff, guess who's still in this year? Alabama. At this point in the stage, Alabama would still be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
At 4 teams, assuming that Georgia beats Alabama, Alabama's not in. And you'd see a Georgia versus, another conference team, right?
Right.
But if Alabama's in, there's a chance that you would see another SEC matchup, because Alabama is playing really good football right now. And a lot of people would argue that, Alabama might be the second best team in the country as of right now. So I don't know, just something I don't want to get too far off topic, but we'll definitely be breaking that down a little bit further, moving forward.
Oh, of course. And we're going to actually give you guys our playoff predictor here in just a minute. As me and Mason had the same teams, maybe a little different order. But we've got the same playoff teams that we're thinking are going to make it at this point. But yeah, be careful what you wish for,
right?
Because this 12-team playoff, I mean, you're talking about Ole Miss and Penn State being in there. Who raise your hand if you think Ole Miss and Penn State even have a remote chance of being a playoff game? Nobody's going to raise their hand to that.
Well, and you'd probably have a Tulane in there, instead of Penn State, Yeah. That'd be even worse. We saw Ole Miss beat Tulane, but again, without their starting quarterback.
Right, absolutely. So it's a be careful what you wish for type of thing. I think the 14 playoff was good. I think a 6 would have been better. But you know what? We're not in charge of that, even though we should be. So that's something to think about. Maybe we should be in charge. Number 10, the Mizzou Tigers. They took care of Florida, but not in no decisive fashion. Boy, this thing came down to the end. But Missouri's kind of been through the gauntlet here at the end, so I can kind of understand that a little bit. Man, those Missouri fans were about ready to shed a tear, man. They did not think they had a chance in this one, and I certainly didn't either. I jumped off the couch whenever they hit that 4th and 17. I couldn't believe it. Louisville, the bird with teeth, they clinched their spot in the ACC championship. Looked pretty good doing it. Jack Plummer had a great day. They're looking better by the minute. The more I think about that ACC championship matchup, Alabama been looking good. Played absolutely nobody this weekend and looked good. They have harder practice days than the game they had this past Saturday. So I'm not going to put too much in that. My thoughts are still the same on Alabama. I think they're a good team. Tied at number 6, Texas Longhorns and the Florida State Seminoles. if these two teams were to play today, I'd take Texas for sure. Especially considering what we just saw. I think Quinn Ewers has got to keep working on that shoulder, man. And I think that's going to be key. And I think this offensive line needs to continue to get better and patch up some things, because I saw Iowa State penetrating on some things that they had no business competing with a Texas Longhorns team. So, hey, hat off to Iowa State. They played really hard, but we've seen some close games with Texas here lately, and I'm wanting to see that dominant Texas maybe one more time at least before the conference championship game. And then Florida State, we talked about the injury that happened to Jordan Travis, just absolutely devastating. Really, really hate to see that. As a college football fan, you don't want to see teams not at their best. You want to see the best versions of all these teams, and we're not going to get that at this point with Florida State. I can confidently tell you that right now.
No.
So very interesting, the comings and goings here in the top 10 and what happened in week 12. What's your thoughts on this rung? And we'll get into the really what's the top 4, because we have 2 tied at number 4.
Yeah, not a whole lot of movement in our top 10 as a whole. A little bit of a mix up, I guess, with Oregon kind of leapfrogging Florida State in this one. You mentioned Florida State now, without their starting quarterback, every game moving forward now, Florida State fans have an excuse to lose, right? And so, and I hate that for them in a sense that, their quarterback's not going to be at, or their team's not at their full strength with their quarterback missing. But at the same time, I've been saying from the really ever since there were only 5 undefeated teams remaining that Florida State was the worst of the bunch. So I think that they were bound to lose regardless. But now you kind of give Florida State and Mike Norvell an out in saying that they didn't have their best quarterback, so that is what it is. And maybe they continue to win. Florida State fans can certainly tell us, what they think that the rest of the season will look like for them and other, fans of other college football teams. Let us know what you think the outlook is like for the Florida State Seminoles now. But, moving on to Texas, I think that maybe Quinn Ewers was rushed back. I think that they realized that they had some holes with Murphy. So now we're seeing him play at probably about 70%. I don't think he's really that close to being 100%. So we'll see his play continue to tick up as we move on. I'm excited to see that. And then moving on to Alabama, probably playing the best football out of the bunch here and looking like they were supposed to look all season. We're seeing the most talented team in college football, and they're starting to play a little bit like that. So they're on a crash course for Georgia in a couple of weeks, and college football as a whole just cannot wait for this game. It's going to be outstanding. And then you've got Louisville, who played really well. I thought against Miami, that was definitely a game that they could have lost. And Louisville's just been a really consistent team, and you don't see that coming out of the ACC that often. You see an ACC team like Clemson, dropping a game here and there. And Louisville's just been steady Eddie. They had the one bad loss to Pitt, and outside of that, I think they've been playing really consistent football, which shows a very, disciplined team. And I think that that's been really a bright spot. Missouri, I'll just real quick. I mean, they escape, this past week and defeat Florida in a really, really good matchup. Another Harrison Mevis thicker kicker kick to win it, and it was really a fun game to watch. They were on the rope several times. Also, had Etienne not stepped out of bounds, then they take a little bit more time off the clock, and maybe Missouri never gets that opportunity to drive late, so a little bit of mismanagement of the clock on Florida's part, late in that game. But and it also kind of, Florida, not to spend too much time on them, but they're in crunch time now, right? They needed one of these next 2 wins and had a really good opportunity. Now they got to face Florida State, and play an upset at home, which helps them out a lot. But that's definitely a game to watch, next week. But let's get into the top 5, man.
Tied at number 4, we have got the Oregon Ducks and the Michigan Wolverines. Oregon, I think, is playing some of the best football in the country right now. I think Bo Nix has been really good, but Oregon kills the teams they're supposed to kill. So I'm kind of, I really like what I see, but if you look at the teams that they've killed this, I mean, Arizona State's not no good team, man. I mean, they beat them 49-7, and that's very decisive, and that's all you can do against a team like that. It's just, they could have probably beat them 100-0 if they wanted to, but
Yeah.
they're not going to be playing another Arizona State for the rest of the year. So with the competition level on an uptick, I'm interested to see how Oregon handles that and how Bo Nix handles it when he inevitably eventually gets pressure. We've seen that throughout his career, and that's every quarterback. Most quarterbacks' numbers drop when they're under pressure. But I'm interested to see how this team reacts to that. I can't wait to see that Oregon Washington matchup. Can't wait to see if Muhammad can match up with Troy Franklin. That's going to be a matchup to watch.
Yeah.
Michigan, I've kind of shared my thoughts on them earlier today whenever we did our reaction show earlier today. And I think Michigan is a team that they were due for a distracting game, a distracting week. And I think they were very distracted. And I think they're looking ahead to Ohio State, which I think is understandable, but almost didn't escape with the win out there in Maryland. And that was kind of discouraging to see. I'm concerned about the downfield passing game with this team, especially whenever they face some serious competition if they make it to the playoff, much less the game that's coming up this week. So can't wait to see them play Ohio State, who's our number 2 team. Ditto with them, honestly. I want to see how they respond to a really good Michigan front seven, and I want to see if those receivers and Kyle McCord can manage to get the ball over the top and stretch the field. That's really the unique unit in this game is that wide receiver core for Ohio State. Can't wait to break that one down more this week. Washington, they stay at number 3. We've had them at number 3. They deserve to be at number 3. Very gutty win that they had this past weekend. I'm not worried about them only winning by 2 at all. That was just a game that they needed. They weren't even favored. And so you could say that they defied the odds to win that game, and definitely defied Mother Nature, and threw the ball in a monsoon. So I thought that was very, very impressive. Got stops when they needed to, ran the ball good enough to win this game. And then we talked about Georgia earlier today as well in our reaction video. Georgia took care of Tennessee like it was no problem. I mean, it wasn't an issue. We kind of talked about Carson Beck going on the road only for the second time, with the SEC, stadiums. This was a really big one. This was a big stage. A lot of people watching this game, and I mean, Carson Beck just tore it up. 24 of 30, right around 300 yards. Totally tore it up. And Georgia proves again they are not relying on one player. There's not one player on this team that they're relying on. So it's a very good cast of players that Georgia's got, and I think they're playing the best ball in the country right now. What do you think about this top group?
Yeah, I like that Oregon has crept up into our top 5. Power rating wise, I think that they're a top 4 team right now. And, look, they've got the one loss to the number 3 team in the country, and that's it. And they really should have won that game, I think, in a lot of ways, not taking anything away from the Huskies. But
If they don't turn the ball over 3 times, they probably do win. And if they don't
right.
make boneheaded coaching decisions, they probably do win.
Yeah, I think they definitely win. But we'll get to see that rematch, thankfully, in a neutral site, and we'll see kind of what comes of that. Michigan, struggled for the first time this year, struggled with a Maryland team on the road, and really had opportunities to lose this game. And credit to them, they found a way to win it. I'm not going to take too much away from Michigan for playing in a tough spot, in sort of a sandwich game, is a trap game if I've ever seen one, right? So they found a way to win it, but nothing on offense really going for them in that game against Maryland, which is pretty concerning, especially from a passing perspective. They're definitely going to have to show me more on offense this coming week against Ohio State to be able to win that game. And then Washington, you mentioned it, gritty performance against Oregon State. Could have lost that game very easily. They were shut down in the second half offensively, missed one field goal, but ultimately just weren't really driving. So I'd like to see them be a little bit more consistent on the offensive side of the ball. But I thought that their defense made some very opportunistic stops and turnovers when they needed them. And then Ohio State, I'm seeing a little bit more from them on offense. I wish I could see more out of Kyle McCord, especially with those weapons he has in the wide receiver room, which is possibly the best unit in all of the country of any unit. So I think that if he can take another step forward this week against Michigan, then they become a legitimate playoff contender and championship, winning team. That's what I'm waiting to see. Their defense, look, they've got it. We've been saying for years now, if Ohio State just had a top, 20 defense, then they would win the national championship. Well, you got it. And now all of a sudden you're getting, less play from your offense. So I'm continuing to watch that offense and seeing how it progresses. That we're running out of time, right? So that they've got to kind of put it up this week against Michigan. And number one, Georgia, no real surprises there. They played like the number one team in the country this week. They just won their 28th game in a row, I believe. So they've got a chance to win this week against Georgia Tech, and then going up against Alabama in the SEC championship to make it 30. And they're aiming to do that. So, but that's all I got for you.
Flash us that college football playoff predictor we've got going on. We're going to give you our top 4 teams. Oh, you've already got it up. Bam. This is where we're at. This is what I'm thinking is going on. This is what Mason's thinking is going on. We're simpatico here. All right. We are together as one, first and long team. I mean, we like Ohio State right now. We think that I think they stand a really good chance this year. Ryan Day has taken a totally different approach to this football team, I feel like, than what they have, and in the past. That is, they can run the ball, they can play defense. That's what it's going to take. We talked about Michigan. Ohio State was more built to win playoff games and things like that. They were a high-powered offense, serviceable defense. It was better last year than it had been years prior. This year is really, really good. Michigan was built to win the Big Ten. Well, now I feel like as the year has progressed and we've seen more of Ohio State, they're almost built like a Michigan. It's kind of weird how that's worked out, but I think it's by design. I think it's I think that it's the step in the right direction for them to win the Big Ten and get to where they want to go. So, and then we like Oregon over Texas. We both feel, as of right now, and I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout or anything, but we feel like Oregon has got the edge at Pac-12 championship game. And the edge is that defense. Now, I saw some things out of that defense from Washington that I really like this week. And I'm not, necessarily saying that Washington can't win. They've already beat them once. Anything can happen in a football game, but I think if Oregon doesn't turn the ball over in that game, I think that, and not to mention the boneheaded going for 2 here, going for 4th down here. I thought those were very dumb decisions. Football Jesus, thank you so much for commenting and watching the video. We do appreciate it. you guys have to stop assuming Oregon will beat Washington. People have said that for the last 3 weeks that I think he's saying that we will lose, and they keep winning. Beware. Hey, look, I bet on Oregon State this weekend, and I lost. So I've already come on here and said that, and it was a 2-point game. I don't think I was necessarily barking up the wrong tree. And Oregon's looked really good. It's not a guaranteed thing that they're going to beat Washington, but we gotta call it like we see it. And
Yeah.
look, I predicted Washington to go to the playoff in the preseason. So if there was any kind of lean, it would have been to Washington. But I've just seen what I've seen, and I know what Dan Lanning is. This offense is really good. Dan Lanning is a defensive minded coach. Yeah, he's like a perfect fit for Oregon and what they need to do to win the Pac-12 in Vegas that first weekend in December. And I believe that one's on a Friday night. I cannot wait to watch it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good game. Oregon ain't going to blow nobody out. Washington's going to have chances to win this football game and prove everybody wrong. And if Washington does go and beat Oregon, they may even go up to like the number 2 spot or something. It's very, very possible.
Yeah.
And we watched TCU do this last year. I bet against TCU 3 or 4 times last year, and they kept winning. So it's not impossible. But as of right now, that's kind of where we both sit. We've talked about this before we got on air because we knew this would come up. So yeah, I appreciate you commenting, and best of luck to Washington. Hey, it would prove me right, and I would be one of the only people that picked Washington to go to the playoff. Okay, so for that reason right there, I'm rooting for Washington. Okay. Seriously, I really am. So we'll see what happens, man. That game is highly anticipated, as you can see by this comment here. People are fired up already for these conference championship games, Mason.
Yeah, and I think what you have to remember, Jesus, is that we we have Washington ahead of Oregon. I don't know if you were around for our top 25 breakdown, but we do think that. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. No,
Sweet
but
baby Jesus. Woo!
we do think that Washington is ahead of Oregon right now in our rankings. This is just a playoff prediction, that we're giving you right now. We're not assuming that Oregon beats Washington, but we are predicting it, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. I think it's going to be a really good game and a close game.
Yeah.
But based on what we saw in that head-to-head matchup, and based on what we've seen from each team, I still give Oregon the slight edge, although I think that Washington is playing the best football we've seen from them all year. And you can't take that away from them. They have defied, people talking about them, but we've had Washington at 3 for 8 weeks now, it seems like. We've been higher on Washington than most other channels and the national media as a whole. And we kind of had to come off of that train a little bit when they battled the flu. We didn't realize how much of an impact that really made on them and their performance. But now we see them peaking. The issue is I also see the Ducks peaking at the same time. And I like their weapons a little bit more right now on the offense. And I think that they have I'll say a much better defense than Washington. Washington's just been able to kind of get big plays when they need them. So, but definitely a deserving team to be in the playoffs should they beat Oregon. Absolutely. And I think especially if Michigan were to beat Ohio State, I would put, if Washington beats Oregon, Washington gets the number 2 slot, in my opinion. I don't, if Ohio State wins, then maybe the head-to-head, I'd have to break it down. But maybe they would stay in at number 2, but that's an interesting comparison that we can save for another day.
Yeah. I also want to say, I thought McMillan was going to be back for Washington, and he still doesn't look right. So I'm not sure where that's. I feel like they need him really to beat Oregon. It's that close of a margin. You need all your weapons in this game, and that goes for Oregon too. Oregon needs every weapon in the reservoir there to beat Washington. So And Dan Lanning can't be making some dumbass decisions like he did the first go round in this game. It was kind of disappointing, but something you see out of first year coaches. And Kalen DeBoer, I thought did on the other end of that, like this past weekend. Washington did some things on offense that I really liked. They know how to line up and get the matchups they want, and it's impressive the formation when 4 wide receivers out here to the right and throwing 1 out here to the left. Well, guess what? Somebody's got to cover these 4, and then that leaves number 1 over here all by himself on an island with a corner, and he's going to win that battle. I mean, he's just going to win that battle. Like, it's not 50-50 balls. It's like 70-30. Like, he's if he's one-on-one with somebody, you throw it to him. And so this Washington team continues to be 1 play away. If you folks are just tuning in, go back and take a look at our reactions. We just reacted to all the big games of the week. We hope that you'll give us a thumbs up. We hope that you hit the subscribe button. We're doing this every week. College football is heating up now. You saw it in the thumbnail. I'm not joking around. I'm not just trying to get your attention. It's heating up, man. It's time. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Conference championship week. Most of them are December 2nd. Some of them December 1st, and all the lesser conferences are just before that. So we are getting right down here to the nitty-gritty, and we want you to be tuned in and know what's going on and watching some football with us. We're creating a community here, and we've got people from coast to coast, y'all. We got people tuned in on the Pacific, and we got people tuned in on the Atlantic, and that's what we want. We want perspectives. So please leave us a comment and tell us where we went wrong, and we'd love to discuss with you. We will respond accordingly. So
you guys are getting in early. We are officially the fastest growing college football channel on YouTube percentage wise currently. And so if you're subscribing and you're paying attention now, we appreciate it. Just want to let you know you guys are ahead of the curve there. And thank you so much for tuning in and making this fun for us. If nobody watched it, we probably had given up by now. So somebody likes our opinions or doesn't like our opinions enough to comment. And man, we really appreciate the support no matter how it comes.
Yeah, just the opportunity to be able to do this. You guys make me a better college football fan. I've got notes and notes and notes. I've almost went through a whole notebook, writing all these notes down, and that's just from the last few weeks. I'm in a new notebook every 3 weeks here. So you guys are making sure that I'm on my game, and we're going to make sure that you are on your game. Join us tomorrow. We're going to be breaking all these games down. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to cut these videos up. When you watch live, you get to watch us make the sausage here. So we'll cut them into links later. So thank you all so much for watching. We certainly appreciate it. And for the First and Long College Football Show, this is Marcus signing off. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks. We'll see y'all tomorrow.